You are here with By the Cover. Today I'll be reviewing I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy. This book was 471 pages and took me 4 days to read. I would rate this book a 7 out of 10. This review may contain spoilers, so if you do not want to hear those, click off now. The synopsis: a critically acclaimed horror collection by Nat Cassidy, the book features the Bram Stoker Award-nominated novella Rest Stop, alongside a variety of chilling short stories that explore psychological, body, and cosmic horror in seemingly ordinary, isolated places. Now, the only other short story collection that I've read so far that has beat out this collection on average quality of short stories is Night Shift by Stephen King. I Know a Place had very little filler in it. Each story felt like it had a unique voicing. It explored a variety of themes, not just horror. The stories were disturbing, funny, fun, and some heartbreaking, all at the same time. I felt like this was a roller coaster ride that I did not want to get off of. These were my top 5 favorite stories. First up, we have Nice, which I rated a 9.7, a twisted take on the Naughty or Nice list, transforming a classic festive setting into a claustrophobic, stomach-churning family nightmare. The story was my favorite in the collection. It was fun from beginning to end, the concept was imaginative, and all characters in the story were great. My only complaint is that I wish it were longer. Next was Rest Stop, which I rated a 9.6. Abe, a struggling musician, driving to visit his dying grandmother, gets trapped in a filthy gas station bathroom by a stranger. The story follows his journey of survival. Rest Stop has been published as a standalone novel, and the cover of it always put me off. Based off the cover, I thought this was a book that would lean heavily on gore and not have any substance. I was completely wrong in that assumption. This story was engaging, it was funny, it had a lot of heart at its core, it was horrific. Simply put, it was a great story. The descriptions were great, the setups were awesome, the antagonist was original, the tie-in of the 2 primary plot lines was great. This was a story that made you feel like you were there, and it was far better than I expected it to be. Up next, we have The Art of Knowing What You Want. Harris, a grieving tech CEO, discovers his dead wife's ghost has seemingly returned to their house. Facing both corporate ruin and creeping madness, he makes horrifying compromises to navigate his new reality. I liked the characters in this. It was funny. Part of it read like a Suits episode. Some of it was lighthearted, and some of it was disturbing. Again, a story you could very much picture in your head. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Next, we have The Lunar Eclipse. This story follows an elderly woman's reflections on her first love following his death, and their promise to reunite during a lunar eclipse. I gave this one high marks primarily because I think it was written really, really well, and it was a completely different feel from the other stories. This one was very atmospheric and quite deep, reflecting on the past for the majority of the story. It was an introspective break in the journey. It felt quite unique, and it had a lot of heart. Number 5 is Laughlines. Missy travels to England to reconnect with her estranged father and explore her ancestral home. This story is told in emails sent back and forth. I read the author's note at the end of the book, and I did like the origin behind the story. I will say that I don't think the plot of this one makes a whole lot of sense, but it was still a fun, horrific journey with an original premise. So that does it for my top 5 favorite stories. My least favorite stories in the collection were Meet Cute number 2, The Scariest Thing. There is another story in this collection called Meet Cute number 1 that comes much earlier, and I felt like this story was kind of a rehash of that one, but also the subject matter of this one just didn't appeal to me. But the characters were still great in it, and I think for the right audience, it would have worked. And lastly is A Fruiting Body. This was a theatrical piece at the very, very end of the book. It was okay, but it was completely different than the other stories, and I also didn't quite connect with it. So this was a really, really strong collection of short stories. 58.3% of these stories I thought were great. 33.3% I thought were good, and only 16.7% I thought were not so good. but none of them were really terrible, and I think for the right audience they would have been better. I was almost surprised at how good this collection was because the only other book I've read of Nat Cassidy's was Nestlings, and there was one character in that book that I liked, and it was a side character, but the two primary characters in that book I thought were extremely bland. So I was expecting a similar experience in this book, but almost every single character in these short stories was awesome. So I hope that when I read the other two full-length novels by Nat Cassidy, that he has some great characters in those, because I really enjoyed this collection, and it showed me that he has a lot of potential for that type of thing. For the rankings of all the short stories in this collection, check out the description of the video. That's about it. We'll catch you later.